our sports reporter Jean-Emile Jammine is with me here in the studio. And Jean-Emile, first of all, just tell us a bit more about what's happening today.
Well, we've seen just thousands upon thousands of people filing to see the coffin of Pele in the center of the stadium of Urbano Caldera. And you can see now the procession has ended, and that was a Catholic funeral, Catholic mass with President Lula in attendance. After all the people had paid their tributes respectively. It is now filing out, and they will start that procession, as you mentioned, which is going to go past Canal 6. That is where his mother, Celeste Nascimento, Celeste Arantes do Nascimento, still lives at the age of 100. There are rumors that she doesn't even know that her son has passed away, but it is nonetheless going to be going past her house in tribute, and then finally ending up at the Memorial Necropole Ecumenica, 14-story cemetery. He is going to be buried himself there on the 9th story in tribute to his father, Dondinho, who was himself a semi-professional footballer and donned that shirt for many years. So Pele and his father very close, and there's a whole sense and feeling of sentiment around here in Santos. Of course, many people far and wide sending tributes, the likes of Neymar, Vinicius Jr., Real Madrid laying wreaths, and of course FIFA President Gianni Infantino yesterday saying that every federation should have a stadium now named after Pele, himself also in attendance at the funeral procession. So lots to basically soak in here at the stadium, and I'm sure it's going to be a procession which is attended on a similar scale to what we saw with Diego Maradona. And this is Santos, and this is what he has brought basically to the city, and his name synonymous with the place.
Well, let's talk about Santos then, because Pele wasn't born there, he didn't die there, but he did play for the club, and indeed the live images that we're looking at are of the stadium where he played for many years, Jean-Emile. So just tell us a bit about his relationship with the city and why it is that these commemorations today are taking place there.
Well, many teammates of his, both past and basically opposition as well, they said that there was a Santos before Pele and a Santos after Pele, and on a larger scale, a Brazil before and a Brazil after, coming as a 15-year-old rather to the city. And strange turn of events, it was under a coach also called Lula, his first coach at Santos. Santos was a port city. It was known for its beaches and just in terms of tourism, but it wasn't known for its football. Now put on the map in a way which is going to be basically entrenched into folklore. And that is all thanks to Pele. Over there, he won 2 Copa Libertadores, the South American version of the Champions League. He won 2 international cups against Benfica and AC Milan. So any kind of talk that he couldn't have done it basically on an international stage, that we can maybe put that aside and say that really he could have, because he performed so well against international teams. But at Santos specifically, over such a lengthy career spanning over 2 decades, well, in the course of 2 decades, he scored 643 goals in 659 appearances just at that club. So those are official numbers. That puts him amongst the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. And Santos, they're now going to be renaming their port to the King Pele port. It's the biggest in Brazil. So make no mistake, his name will now be on many streets, many buildings. It's going to be, as I said, in the folklore of Brazil in a very big way. And much of that is here in Santos. He died, of course, at the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo. He was born quite a bit away in Três Corações in Minas Gerais state. Born into poverty, but then Santos is where he really made his name. That's where he grew up. That's where he will always be known as being affiliated with that.
Indeed, Santos clearly then, as you're saying, a big part of Pele's identity as a footballer. But for most fans around the world, this isn't what he's most famous for. He's known as an international footballer, helping Brazil win 3 World Cups. Just tell us a bit about Pele as the international footballer that he was? I mean, people describe him as the best of all time. Is that a good description, do you think?
He certainly missed a World Cup. Now, with Lionel Messi recently winning the World Cup of his own, people have put him in that bracket, possibly surpassing Pele. But there is no one who can match him for World Cups. 3 World Cups is unprecedented. And to do so at such a young age, just 17 years old and about just over 250 days, he was the youngest ever goal scorer in a World Cup. He scored a hat-trick against France at the age of 17 in the semi-final of a World Cup. I mean, we've recently seen Kylian Mbappe doing that for France against Argentina. He was 23 at the time. Imagine, 17 years old. And then going on to score 2 goals in the final against Sweden, a 5-2 win in that 1958 World Cup final in Mexico. Sorry, not in Mexico. That 1958 World Cup final to win the World Cup for Brazil. That is an unbelievable achievement at such a young age. Then in 1962, he scored, but he was subsequently injured in a 0-0 draw against Czechoslovakia. Couldn't really enjoy that tournament as much. Had a lot of problems with the federation, the Brazilian federation, as well as the politics that was going on. His coaches wasn't really happy. He retired from international football on several occasions before being tempted to come back in 1970 during the dictatorship of General Medici. And there are some feelings maybe he wouldn't have come back had he not had that kind of pressure. But ultimately, it was his swan song in 1970. He was 29, so still a lot of football ahead of him. And that's where he truly shone, scoring that opening goal in the final against Italy, that 4-1 win. That was in Mexico. And cementing his face into folklore for all eternity. As artist Andy Warhol said, most people, they have their 15 minutes of fame. He will have 15 centuries. And it couldn't be put simpler that Pele is Mr. Football. He is the king of Brazil. In a year in which, of course, Queen Elizabeth herself died, Pele was even made a knight, an honorary knight of the British Empire. Had he changed his nationality somehow, we would have been calling him Sir Pele. That was in 1997. He was knighted by Queen Elizabeth. So it just shows how far and wide his reputation extends. Named the Global Athlete of the 20th Century by the International Olympic Committee in 1999. So it doesn't really get higher than that in terms of accolades. Pele right up there.
Certainly, Jean-Emile.